There is a silent prison most people never realize they are trapped in. It has no walls, no chains, no guards. Most of the suffering people experience is not created by what is happening in front of them. It is created by what is happening inside of them. There is a difference. Reality is usually simple. It is direct. It is happening only in this moment. But the mind does not like simplicity. It prefers complexity. It prefers stories. It prefers drama. And so it begins to interpret, exaggerate, and predict. You wake up and check your phone. Someone has not replied to your message. In reality, nothing has happened. There is only a message without a response. But in the mind, a story begins. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Did I embarrass myself? Within minutes, your body feels tension. Your mood shifts. Your peace disappears. Not because of reality, but because of imagination. This is how most suffering begins. An event happens once. But in the mind, it happens 100 times. Someone criticizes you. The words are spoken for 10 seconds. But your mind replays them for hours. You analyze the tone. You replay your response. You imagine better responses. You imagine what they meant. You imagine what others might think. The moment is gone, yet the suffering continues. Overthinking stretches pain beyond its natural lifespan. The mind also travels into the future. It creates scenarios that do not exist. You have a meeting tomorrow. Immediately, the mind starts preparing for disaster. What if I fail? What if I forget my words? What if they judge me? Your heart beats faster. Your body reacts as if danger is present. But there is no danger. There is only imagination. The body does not know the difference between a real threat and a vividly imagined one, so it reacts to both. This is why overthinking is exhausting. You are fighting battles that are not even real. When you live inside your head, you rarely experience life directly. You experience your interpretation of life. You experience your fears about life. You experience your memories of life, but rarely life itself. Right now, in this moment, pause, look around you. Notice what is actually happening, not what might happen, not what already happened, just what is here. You may notice something surprising. Most of the time, the present moment is neutral. It is manageable. It is not as dramatic as the mind suggests. But the mind dislikes neutrality. It wants stimulation. It wants to solve problems. If there is no problem, it will create one. This habit becomes automatic. You begin to believe that constant thinking equals responsibility. You believe that worrying means you care. You believe that analyzing every possibility means you are prepared. But often, it only means you are trapped. There is wisdom in thinking when action is required. But there is suffering in thinking when nothing can be done. The mind reopens closed doors. It revisits finished conversations. It tries to control uncontrollable outcomes. And in doing so, it pulls you away from the only place where life is happening, here. Overthinking convinces you that you are protecting yourself. In reality, you are draining yourself when you see clearly that most of your suffering is created through repetitive, unconscious thought. Something shifts. You begin to question the authority of every thought. You begin to notice the pattern instead of being consumed by it. And in that noticing, space begins to appear between you and the noise. A thought appears in your mind, and almost instantly, you believe it. It says, I am not good enough. It says, they don't respect me. It says, I always mess things up. It says, something bad is going to happen. And without questioning it, you accept it as truth. But a thought is only a mental event. It is not a fact. It is not reality. It is simply a sentence formed in the mind. The problem is not that thoughts appear. Thoughts are natural. The problem is that you identify with them so quickly that you forget to examine them. You do not pause and ask, is this absolutely true? Instead, you react emotionally as if it has already been proven. Imagine a cloudy day. The sky is covered, and you cannot see the sun. You might say, the sun is gone. But the sun is not gone. It is simply hidden behind clouds. In the same way, when a negative thought appears, it hides clarity. It hides perspective. but it does not replace reality. Your mind is influenced by past experiences, fears, insecurities, and conditioning. If you were criticized often as a child, a simple mistake today might trigger the thought, I am a failure. If someone once betrayed you, a delayed response might trigger the thought, I cannot trust anyone. The mind connects the present to the past and creates conclusions that feel real. But feeling real does not mean being true. A thought can feel powerful. It can create physical sensations, tightness in the chest, tension in the shoulders, restlessness in the body. Because the body reacts, you assume the thought must be valid. Yet the body is reacting to a story, not to verified fact. Consider how many thoughts you have in a single day. Thousands. Many of them contradict each other. In the morning, do this. By afternoon, I am not capable. Both cannot be absolute truth. They are passing mental states. If every thought were true, your reality would change every few minutes. The mind is like a commentator, constantly describing, judging, predicting. But a commentator is not the game itself. It is only a voice speaking about it. When you believe every thought, you become controlled by that voice. Your mood rises and falls with each mental sentence. You become confident when the thoughts are positive and insecure when they are negative. You give your inner dialogue complete authority over your state of being. Freedom begins when you create distance. A thought says, they are judging me. Instead of shrinking, you ask, do I know that for certain? A thought says, I will fail. Instead of panicking, you observe. This is a fear speaking. The moment you see a thought as a thought, it loses some of its power. It is no longer a command. It is no longer a prophecy. It is simply a possibility created by memory and imagination. This awareness does not stop thoughts from arising, but it changes your relationship with them. You stop being the servant of every mental whisper. You become the observer. And when you observe your thoughts, rather than automatically believing them, the mind becomes quieter. Not because it stops speaking, but because you stop reacting to every word. Awareness is the space between you and your thoughts. Most people do not know this space exists. A thought appears, and instantly they become it. Anger arises, and they say, I am angry. Fear appears, and they say, I am afraid. Doubt enters, and they say, I am not capable. There is no separation. The experience and the identity merge into one. But the moment you become aware of a thought, something subtle happens. Instead of saying, I am angry, you notice anger is present. Instead of, I am anxious, you see anxiety is arising. This small shift in language reflects a powerful inner shift. You are no longer the emotion. You are the one observing it. Awareness creates distance. And in that distance, there is freedom. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind is strong, the rain is heavy, and everything feels chaotic. This is what it feels like to be completely identified with your thoughts and emotions. You are inside the storm. You are being pushed and pulled by every gust. Now imagine stepping into a shelter and watching the storm through a window. The wind still blows. The rain still falls. But you are no longer being thrown around. You can observe it without being consumed by it. The storm did not disappear. Your position changed. Awareness is that shelter. When you observe your thoughts, you begin to see patterns. You notice how certain situations trigger the same reactions. You notice how your mind repeats familiar stories. This always happens to me. I must prove myself. These thoughts may have been running for years, unnoticed, shaping your decisions and your behavior. But once they are seen clearly, they lose their invisibility. And what is seen clearly can no longer control you in the same unconscious way. Without awareness, thoughts dictate your actions. A single negative idea can change your mood, your tone of voice, your posture. You may speak harshly, withdraw from others, or make impulsive decisions, all because of something that appeared in your mind for a few seconds. With awareness, there is a pause. In that pause, the thought says, respond with anger. Awareness allows you to ask, is that necessary? The thought says, avoid this situation. Awareness allows you to consider, is this fear or wisdom? Freedom is not the absence of thoughts. It is the ability to not be ruled by them. You begin to understand that thoughts come and go, just like sounds in the environment. A car passes by, you hear it, and it fades. A bird sings, you notice it, and it disappears. You do not chase the sound. You do not argue with it. You let it pass. In the same way, a thought can arise and pass if you do not hold on to it. Awareness transforms your inner world from a battlefield into a place of observation. You stop fighting every mental impulse. You stop trying to suppress every negative idea. You simply see what is there. And in seeing clearly, you step out of automatic reaction and into conscious living. If you truly examine your life, you may discover something surprising. The present moment is rarely as threatening as your mind makes it seem. Right now, as you sit here, what is actually happening? Perhaps you are breathing. Perhaps there are sounds around you. Perhaps light is entering the room. These are simple, neutral experiences. There is no immediate danger, no crisis unfolding in this exact second. And yet, inside the mind, there may be tension, worry, or restlessness. Why? Because the mind is not focused on what is happening. It is focused on what might happen. An upcoming conversation, a future responsibility, a possible rejection, a mistake from yesterday. The mind pulls you away from the present and places you in imagined scenarios. In those scenarios, things go wrong, plans fail, you are judged. You lose control. The body reacts as if these imagined events are real. The heart rate changes. Muscles tighten. Breathing becomes shallow. But look closely. The threat is not here. It exists only as a mental image. This is the strange power of imagination. It can create fear without any physical trigger. If someone insults you directly, there is something tangible happening. Words are spoken. A tone is heard. But when you replay the insult later in your mind, alone in your room, nothing is happening externally. The scene is being recreated internally, yet the emotional reaction returns as if it were fresh. The present moment itself is often quiet. It is the mind's resistance to what is, or its projection of what could be, that creates discomfort. Consider how much of your anxiety is tied to events that have not yet occurred. You worry about outcomes that are uncertain. You prepare emotionally for losses that may never arrive. You rehearse conversations that may unfold completely differently. You suffer in advance. But when the moment actually comes, it is usually more manageable than the imagination predicted. Why is that? Because reality is concrete. It is specific. It unfolds step by step. The mind, however, it deals in exaggeration. It jumps to the worst case scenario. It fills in missing details with fear. It assumes conclusions without evidence. The present moment does not contain your entire future. It contains only this breath, this step, this action. When you bring your attention fully into now, into the sensation of breathing, the feeling of your feet on the ground, the sound of your surroundings, something changes. The imagined future loses its intensity. The past loses its grip. You begin to experience life directly, rather than through mental filters. There is a simplicity in presence. You respond to what is in front of you, instead of reacting to what exists only in thought. This does not mean life has no challenges. It means challenges are faced when they arrive, not multiplied in advance. When you return to the present moment, you often find that it is neutral, sometimes even peaceful. The tension you were carrying was not coming from reality. It was coming from anticipation, from resistance, from mental noise. And when that noise quiets, even briefly, you discover that this moment, just as it is far less frightening than the mind suggested. There is a common belief that if you think long enough, analyze deeply enough, and consider every possible outcome, you will arrive at clarity. The mind convinces you that more thinking equals better decisions. So you sit with a problem, turning it over again and again, examining every angle, imagining every consequence. Yet often, the more you think, the more confused you become. Clarity does not arise from mental noise. It arises from mental stillness. When the surface of a lake is disturbed by wind, the water becomes cloudy. You cannot see what lies beneath. But when the wind settles, the water becomes still, and everything below becomes visible. The lake did not gain anything new. It simply lost disturbance. Your mind works the same way. When it is constantly agitated by fear, doubt, comparison, and analysis, perception becomes distorted. Small issues appear large. Simple choices feel overwhelming. You move in circles, revisiting the same arguments internally, hoping that one more thought will solve what the previous 100 could not. But excessive analysis often feeds uncertainty rather than resolves it. This does not mean thinking is useless. Thinking is a tool. It is valuable when applied with intention. But when it becomes compulsive, when it runs without direction, it creates friction instead of clarity. Notice how your best insights often arrive unexpectedly. Perhaps while walking. Perhaps while showering. Perhaps in a quiet moment when you were not actively trying to solve anything. In those moments, the mind was relaxed. There was space. And within that space, understanding appeared naturally. Stillness allows deeper intelligence to surface. When you are silent internally, you begin to sense rather than force. Decisions feel grounded instead of rushed. You are not reacting from fear or urgency. You are responding from calm awareness. Overthinking tightens the body. It creates pressure. You feel as though you must decide immediately, perfectly, without error. This pressure narrows perception. You see only extremes: success or failure, approval or rejection. Subtlety disappears. Stillness widens perception. When you pause, breathe, and allow thoughts to settle, you can see nuances. You recognize that most situations are not absolute. You understand that no decision guarantees total control, and you accept that uncertainty is part of life. Clarity is not about predicting every outcome. It is about understanding your intention in this moment. When the mind is loud, you may confuse fear with intuition. You may mistake anxiety for wisdom. But when the mind is quiet, you can distinguish between the two. Fear feels urgent and tense. Intuition feels calm and steady. Silence sharpens perception. It also strengthens presence. Instead of being trapped in endless mental simulations, you begin engaging with what is directly in front of you. You listen more carefully. You observe more precisely. You notice details that would otherwise be overlooked. In stillness, the mind is no longer fighting itself. It is not arguing, defending, or predicting. It is simply aware, and from that awareness, decisions emerge with less resistance and more confidence. True confidence is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not need to prove itself. It is quiet, steady, and grounded in presence. When you live in your head, confidence becomes fragile. It depends on outcomes. If things go well, you feel strong. If they go poorly, you collapse into doubt. Your self-worth rises and falls with every external reaction. A compliment lifts you. A criticism breaks you. This is not confidence, it is dependency. But when you are fully present, something shifts. You are no longer performing for an imagined audience inside your mind. You are no longer rehearsing failure before taking action. You are simply responding to what is here. And in that response, there is stability. Presence removes the pressure of perfection. You do not need to control every outcome. You only need to give your full attention to this step, this word, this action. When your focus is here, instead of scattered across future possibilities, your energy becomes concentrated. That concentration creates power. You speak more clearly because you are listening. You move more calmly because you are not rushing ahead mentally. You make decisions without over-explaining yourself internally. There is less hesitation, less second guessing. This kind of confidence is not built on comparison. It is built on awareness. You are not trying to be better than others. You are simply aligned with yourself in the present moment. When challenges arise, you do not panic. You observe, adjust, and act. Because you trust your ability to handle what comes. Not because you know the future, but because you are steady in the now. And that steadiness becomes unshakable strength. Everything changes the moment you realize that you are not your thoughts. You are not the fear that whispers at night. You are not the doubt that questions your worth. You are not the endless commentary running in the background of your mind. You are the awareness behind it all. For most of your life, you may have been living inside mental noise, replaying the past, rehearsing the future, analyzing every possibility. You believed that if you just thought a little more, worried a little more, prepared a little more, you would finally feel safe. But safety does not come from controlling every thought. Peace does not come from solving every imagined problem. Confidence does not come from winning every argument in your head. It comes from presence. When you step out of your mental prison, even for a moment, you discover something powerful. Life is happening now, not in yesterday's regret, not in tomorrow's fear. In this breath, in this step, in this choice. The moment you stop living in your head, you stop fighting shadows. You stop suffering from stories. You stop exhausting yourself with what ifs. And in that space, clarity arises. Strength arises. Calmness arises. The world outside may remain the same. Challenges will still appear. People will still have opinions. Uncertainty will still exist. But you will be different. You will respond instead of react. You will observe instead of assume. You will act instead of hesitate. And that is the real transformation. Not a change in circumstances, but a change in consciousness. The moment you step out of your head and into the present, you stop surviving your thoughts and start living your life. And in that simple shift, everything changes.